Enjoy the Southern Urban Experience on Mzansi Urban Radio.
Welcome once again to Mzansi Urban Radio, the Southern Urban Experience. I'm here at the Orion Safari Lodge in Rustenburg. Today is the 26th of February, 2022. My reason for being here at this venue today is because I'm here to celebrate. I'm here to celebrate excellence. I'm here to celebrate great things that are happening in the province of Northwest. My reason for being here is to join with the South African Democratic Teachers Union. It's a union of educators who are here to celebrate their educators, their members who've done extensively well as educators amongst very difficult conditions. These educators work and toil in some of the most very complex and difficult situations, yet they continue to thrive and produce great results. And that is why the South African Democratic Teachers Union saw it fit to come and celebrate these educators. This is the second time they're doing this, and as always, when we are here, we have to speak to one of the main organizers of this event. He's the Provincial Secretary of the Union in Northwest Province. His name is Themba. I think at this time, I should have earned the right to call you my brother, Themba. Good afternoon to you, my dear sir, and thank you for the first of all for the invitation, but also for the opportunity to dialogue with you.
Good afternoon, Brati, and thanks to Mzansi Urban for having accepted our invitation and being with us here. As always,
yes.
We really appreciate your presence here.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, we started talking, I think, way back in 2018, I think 2019 perhaps, when we were celebrating teachers right here in Rustenburg in a school down the road. It was a celebration of World Teachers Day, and that's when we started talking about matters of education, and that's when I saw your passion as an educator, as a leader of educators, and I'm really happy that we're talking again today. 2021, although not as drastic as 2020, was also a difficult year insofar as teaching and learning is concerned. How do you look at it when you reflect on 2021? Comparatively speaking to 2020, what are your conclusions?
Look, Brati, these have been two very difficult years. Particularly to the fraternity, because you'll understand that teachers are on the firing line. These are the people who must make sure that our learners continuously get education, and therefore at no stage they had to neglect their responsibilities. But under difficult circumstances, you'll know that when the pandemic picked up, there was what we could refer to as a stop and go, kind of a schooling system.
Yes.
But equally, we had to adjust to the new norm in terms of your rotational system, in terms of making sure that we are able to introduce our learners to technology in terms of e-learning, which was unfortunately a disadvantage, particularly to the most of our farm, rural and township schools. But over and above that, the teachers had to deal with a lot of anxiety. Remember, this was a new thing that all of us had to adjust to, but most importantly, that serious psychological peering, because a number of educators passed on, unfortunately.
Yes.
May their souls rest in peace.
Absolutely.
We were also affected by members of own families who passed on, and learners also were affected by these circumstances. But under the circumstances, the teachers had to toil. The teachers have to show their resilience. Now, we are much pleased that at least our caring government, led by the African National Congress, managed to make accessible the vaccines so that they must then be able to assess the situation. We know that the vaccines are not necessarily an option to end up this particular pandemic, but is to mitigate people getting extremely sick and ultimately some of them succumbing. So comparatively, when you look into 2020 and 2021 coming to 2022, you can see that there are a lot of adjustment. and our people now understand what they are dealing with. Our people have adjusted to your non-pharmaceutical interventions. Now our people understand now as compared to earlier on when people were being enveloped by issue of anxiety more than anything else.
Provincial Secretary, you touched immediately almost on the issue of vaccine. There has been, of course, negative reporting on it. There has been other issues coming out of reports around vaccine, what we call non-vaxxers and so forth. From your point of view, and maybe perhaps also from SADTU's point of view, how do you encourage people to partake in this regime of vaccination to really, as you say, mitigate, not completely take it away, but mitigate the exposure that the virus could have on people's lives? How do you encourage people to vaccine?
No, thanks. Firstly, we must appreciate that we are living in a democratic society enshrined by our own constitution, where all of us citizens do have rights. We are also acknowledging the fact that our own state president has indicated previously that no one will be forced to take vaccination. But I think we must indicate that as SADTU, part of the SADTU Federation, when there was an introduction or an indication of compulsory vaccination, we stood as an organization and said we will not agree to issues of compulsory vaccination. However, we have said that the rights must be coupled with responsibility. That is why our take as an organization is that as much as we are not promoting compulsory vaccination, however, we are encouraging our own members and society at large to take vaccination as a way of mitigating the challenges that are there. We are also at this particular moment can indicate that close to 60% of the population of educators are vaccinated. And therefore we think we can see that the number of casualties have gone down, and we are gradually coming back to normality. And that is what we're expecting, because you will know that this has affected seriously the learners, it has affected the economy of the country. And that is why we're also now encouraging our members to go and take a second jab, a booster jab, which will then make sure that the livelihood continues, and we're able to continue doing our work without necessarily concentrating on the negatives. We want to indicate very clear that those who are not informed by science should not discourage our people necessarily from taking vaccines, because our stance is more informed by science and what we are seeing happening. So hence our position is very clear. We are encouraging our teachers, community members, that let's take the second jab, which is a booster jab.
You mentioned 60% of educators have taken the vaccine. What are the numbers like in your province? Is this 60% in your province, or is this national?
It's nationally. In the province, we can talk anything between 80 to 90%. That is why we are continuously making this particular important call that those who have not vaccinated, let's go out there and vaccinate, not only for ourselves as individuals, but also to save our own families and the community and the space in which we are living in.
Absolutely. Let's come back to today. Today we're here because we want to celebrate. I want to ask this question this way, that last year we were here, we celebrated with those who achieved. We're back again this year. Do you see any significant improvement in the performance on account of the acknowledgement that happened last year? In other words, I'm asking whether these awards are making an impact in the results.
Definitely and for sure. If you remember when we converged here last year, we only had a certain number of categories, and we vouched that we are going to increase the categories. But last year we only honored close to around 50 schools. But currently, as we are speaking, we have got more than 150 schools that are here.
Wow.
And this on itself is a clear demonstration that these awards are making a serious impact. Remember, it's the second year, but we want to go big. That is why we have also introduced other new categories, like for an example, recognizing the special schools, where situations or the conditions are very difficult. And these teachers have toiled under those circumstances. We have also the rural schools, some of the categories that we have included. So we are seeing a very serious impact, and we want to categorically make it clear that whilst we invite principals or representatives, this is not about principals. Principals are also teachers in their own right. They are members of SADTU, but we are recognizing the achievement of schools, because the school it's a setup where you have all interested parties in the form of your parents, the learners, the teachers themselves. So we are recognizing that particular contribution under very difficult circumstances, and we appreciate really the resilience that our members have shown under the circumstances, very difficult conditions that they are working on, inadequate resources and everything. However, this is demonstrated by even seeing the province achieving 2% more than what is achieved last year. Whilst as an organization, we are not really into the issue of who obtained position 1 in terms of how the department think Gauteng should be 1, whatever. It's not our view as SADTU. Our view is that we must have quality and education. More of our learners must be able to enroll with universities and be able to make sure that they are able to perform even beyond that, going into their other life beyond normal schooling.
Provincial Secretary of SADTU Northwest, Mr. Themba. SADTU is an organization of educators, not only high school educators, primary school, preparatory schools, and so forth and so forth. Yet today, you are here to honor, rightly so, those in high school who are also achieving results specifically for grade 12. What do you say to someone who then says to you, but what about the rest of the SADTU members who are in lower grades? How, at what point do you bring recognition to them?
Well, Prati, by virtue of these learners being at the exit phase, which is grade 12, they had a very strong foundation, and that foundation is from the primary schools. So in that respect, we are also equally so acknowledging the contribution that has been made. However, like we have said, this is the second year. We will continue as the Provincial Executive Committee look into other categories that will have to include going forward to make sure that it's more representative. But we are not necessarily just saying it's about those who are in grade 12, because these learners would have not been there if they have not received the necessary foundation from the primary teachers. Therefore, we're acknowledging everyone in the sector with this particular event that we are holding today, and also going forward in terms of our improvement.
I want to ask you a very philosophical educational question that is always raised in conversations when we speak about matric. And that is to say that the entry level, you have high numbers studying, a year. You have 100 starting in grade 1. 12 years later, you're only matriculating 50 of that 100. That seems to be a trajectory that our country has followed for a while now. And it seems to be, it is a tragic trajectory that we've been following now. PS, how do you respond to that? Where are the elements that are missing that helps us to change this trajectory around?
Prati, you'll know that we have adopted a very segregative system of Bantu education, which has thought that the only point where you will say someone has achieved through schooling is when someone has gone through matric. And I think that is one of the mistakes that we have committed as a country. And we must start appreciating the fact that now currently there is what is called a 3-stream model. Because we must also agree that not all the learners will go through the matric class. There are other learners who have certain skills that needs to be nurtured. You've got your vocational, you've got your technical, you've got your academic stream. So our government is taking that particular route. And I think that on its own, it will assist in trying to reduce what we are seeing now with so many entries at the initial stage. But when we go to the last stages, the number would have reduced. Because people would have then, the learners would have then pursued their own vision and mission in terms of their own skills. So there's no need when a learner is artistic and we understand this learner can be able to excel in that particular field, that we must push the learner to just go and do and sit in a mathematics or physical science class, when we can actually reroute that particular learner to a particular relevant section where the learner could be able to go through. And the other myth that we are having is that our thinking is that it's only universities that are key and important. But we are not agreeing to that. We are saying we have technical schools, we have our TVET, where these learners can be able to possess the necessary skills. Our country do have serious shortage of skills. And we don't think it's important that we must import skills when we can be able as a country to deal with that. So we think it's important that we must reposition and make sure that our curriculum is driven in such a way that it is able to address those particular issues. And I think in that we'll be able to really have a nice way of making sure that we cover this particular space. Thanks.
Provincial Secretary, where are you with the province? I had a conversation earlier on with the HOD of Northwest Education, Mayor Semaswe, Stefina Semaswe. She's here today at the invitation of SADTU. How is your relationship as we speak today? Are you finding each other? Are you closer, in terms of employer-employee relations? Are you gelling together, or there's friction? How do you categorize that relationship today?
Now, let me indicate, Brati, that education is a highly contested terrain, where you've got an employer and employees. And obviously, where there's an employer and employee, there will always be issues.
Yes.
And that is why there are trade unions like SADTU, who must be able to champion the interest of the workers. I can indicate that we are engaging with the department. It is not always the time that we agree on some of these particular issues, because we think that there will be no need for the existence of a trade union like SADTU if we'll agree on everything. But I can assure you that there are obviously a number of challenges in the sector that are very much evident. You've got infrastructure challenges, learner transport, filling of vacant posts, rural incentives, and all those particular challenges. These are some of the things that we continue engaging. But our belief is that we give an engagement an option, because we want to exhaust everything, and we want also to demystify a thinking that SADTU is a union that always think that the best option is going to the street. We want to engage. But where we think that the engagements are not necessarily giving us what we're deserving, then we'll opt for any other mechanism that we can use as an organization. Therefore, we can say that there are areas that indeed with the department we are moving, but there are certain gray areas that we think we must be able to address so that we are able to improve the standard of education in the province, in the country, because we believe in quality public education. Hence, always, Brati, when we contest this issue of putting the resources in grade 12 most of the time, our view is that let's put a lot of resources in the foundation phase, so that when we go, these learners are moving from one grade to the other. We don't have to put a lot of pressure on educators to produce the results, and people only concentrate on the grade 12 results, because it's an unsustainable issue. We need our learners to be properly trained from the foundation phase, so that they must carry themselves until the last phase of whatever streaming of education that they will follow.
As one of the challenges you have, of course, with the department currently, where you've given them an ultimatum, is around one that you rose, you spoke about earlier on, around rural incentives, rural allowances. You've given them until the 28th of February, and you said to them, people need to be paid. Why is the deadlock there? Why is this an issue?
Well, I think the department is the ones best to explain, because with our view is that the teachers who are deserving in terms of the policy of rural incentive should be able to get what is due to them. We were taken aback by the department not paying the teachers in 2021 without any explanation. That is why we have set as the Provincial Executive Committee, and we vouched that we will not leave this matter unattended. And I can tell you that we have already knocked to the offices of the department, of the acting SG. We have given them those particular ultimatum to say you need to pay the educators, or else will then have no any other option but to flex our muscle as an organization. And on that particular one, we are steadfast because we think those teachers, they are teaching under very difficult condition. However, this is a policy that is there which needs to be implemented without any failure.
No, I mean, I do wish you well. I do not understand why. I wish I had known prior to my interview with Mr. Maswe, and I would have asked her that particular question, why the stall and what actually informs it. Let me move back to today. I mean, I know you don't like this question where I ask you your favorite award and those that won it and so forth, but there must be one particular award that you look at. I don't know whether a Provincial Secretary, have you introduced the Provincial Secretary Award? Maybe that's something we need to think about going forward, where this one goes to that particular school for whatever particular reason. But anyway, I digress. What special award do you look at today and look at that and feel, you know what, this touches my heart? Which one in particular?
Look, Brati, you would have noted that we have introduced the Special School Award. For an example, you've got schools like your Christiana School for the Blind. Those learners and those teachers who are working under those particular conditions. Remember, some of them, unfortunately, they have not gone to a specialized training. However, they had to adjust with the situation. So, to me, the Special School Award, it is, to me, it's a very key one for this particular round. Though all of them are very much important, but I think it's the award that really, to me, it's one of those that are outstanding.
And Mirov seems to have done very well there.
Definitely. Because we want to close the gap, as we have said earlier on. We want to recognize in the sector all the schools variously so that they also realize the importance and the contribution that they are making in changing the lives of ordinary South Africans and black learners in particular.
Let's move to another subject. You know, I enjoy talking to you, so we could spend the entire day talking. 2022 is a conference year, and you know, almost like the end of your current term, right? First of all, how do you reflect on the term, the past 5 years? Is it a 5-year term? I mean, when you reflect on it, what are your reflections?
Well, it's a 4-year term.
4-year term.
It was interrupted, obviously, by the COVID. We think that we have done very well as an organization. A number of programs that we've planned, emanating from our last conference, we have been able to implement. However, you must know that the challenges on education, they are enormous, and on a daily basis there are new challenges that evolves, but we think the interruption by COVID also has affected a lot of our programs. You would have noted that we could not get our members participating in a number of activities. Rightfully so, last year we could not even, I'm saying in 2020, celebrate the World Teachers Day, one of our flagship programs. Absolutely. As an organization. Last year we had to scale the numbers only to 100 just to make sure that at least we know that our teachers are there to celebrate, because you know normally we have multitudes of teachers who are doing that particular program. Yes. So we think we are doing well as an organization, and we are destined for a bigger and brighter future.
One of the subjects that we spoke about in our earlier conversations when we started talking in 2018 or so was the issue around safety in schools. You were very passionate about that. Even at the time when we spoke, there was a student who had attacked there was a learner who had attacked a educator. It made news. I think he might have even killed him or so. I can't remember the story very well. You would call that a provincial secretary. Now let's reflect on that. That day in Rustenburg when we spoke about it, and where we are today insofar as educator safety of schools, your work and your reflection on that.
Look, I think it's one of the gray areas that we can appreciate, that the department is not doing much in that particular space. However, we are continuing to push them whilst they raise issues of budgetary constraints, but we think the lives of the learners, the teachers, and all workers within the sector are very critical. As an organization, we have also lived to our own understanding that education is a societal issue. So we cannot relegate this entirely to the department. That is why as SADTU, in our 2019 Congress, we have adopted what we call a school fan campaign. The campaign that we launched last year provincially. And that campaign, seeks to bring together all stakeholders in education. Your parents, your SGBs, learners, everybody in education. To say, look, schools belong to us. We need to take care and be jealous of our own surroundings. This issue of vandalism in our schools, this issue of parents moving into the schools and attacking educators must be a thing of the past. Hence, as SADTU, we have that particular motto that says we care, we teach, and we denounce violence, because we don't really think that schools should be territory where there should be a lawlessness. We think our schools must be areas where there is safety. Our schools must be safe havens. What must be the order of the day must be actual learning and teaching without negative interruptions, particularly from our people. So I'm saying it is not an issue that would have concluded by now, but it's not one of the things that would have lived out of our agenda. We'll pursue the department to make sure that really we are able to arrive at that. But we are also calling on our communities, because it can happen, Prati, that our schools are banned and the neighboring communities don't know anything about that. That is why we are saying this particular campaign by SADTU, it is inviting all the stakeholders to say, let's take collective responsibility and not point fingers to individuals when we cannot protect our own surrounding ourselves as community members first, and parents of those particular learners, including all those are in the fraternity of education.
The issue of the EA and GSA, what are you doing about that? What's happening there?
Well, I think firstly what we must do is to appreciate the initiative by the current president of the country by introducing the PYA. This is one of the programs that has actually assisted in terms of making sure that they really try to minimize unemployment, particularly around the youth. It might not be something that is in terms of permanent job, but however, currently it's better than nothing. But we think the contribution that they've made, the EAs and the GSAs in our schools, is very enormous, to an extent that it has demonstrated the need for the department to make sure that there is more personnel at the level of the schools who will assist the educators with other administrative responsibilities, so that the educators must excel in the field of learning and teaching, going into the class and excel in the area that they've been trained. So we think really, as government is continuously dealing with this particular matter, our view will be that there should be a serious consideration that we continue to have at least the provision of this support personnel, because the work that they are doing is very enormous. We are only just really disturbed, but equally so not happy about how the department continuously is failing this particular group with regard to the on-time payment, because you and me must agree that it can be correct that people work, and when they are supposed to be remunerated, there are challenges. We think the department must get its house in order and make sure that these people, as and when it's time for them to get what is due to them, they must be able to do that. But we think really the support of personnel in schools, particularly in our highly or previously disadvantaged schools, because you will know that in your former model schools where they are charging high exorbitant fund, they are able to employ these people through SGB funding. But in our Northeast schools, unfortunately, the schools cannot be able to afford that. So Absolutely. We think it's a very good initiative. It needs to be sustained. It will assist the country in managing, dealing with youth unemployment, but it will also have a very positive impact on the sector itself.
I mean, this is, as we said, conference here, and every leader, I wanted to say politician, and I know you're going to correct me if I called you that. But every leader around, when you ask them if they are available and they're coming back and they are going to stand for the elections and will they continue serving, and the standard answer that everybody gives is we serve at the pleasure of our members, and if the members want me back, I will be back. I'm going to allow you to give me that answer, Provincial Secretary, if you so wish. but I've engaged and dialogued with you so extensively in the past that I know you're going to give me a more substantive answer than that. But it's up to you. You know, I'm not going to dictate that for you. Are you coming back? Are you available to stand as the Provincial Secretary of the Northwest, or was that your last term, the current one?
Well, Prati, from your initial introduction of this question, we are very much spot on. We are in a democratic society. We are also governed by our own constitution, which empowers obviously ordinary members of SADTU from the level of the size to the branch to determine, make a determination, take stock of the work that has been done by the leadership, and at the relevant time, they will then make a determination as to who then must lead the union going forward. Thanks, Brati.
You know, the craftiness of answering that question is greatly appreciated by me, and I don't know whether the listeners would also appreciate that. I hope for you, for the province and for SADTU, that they're able to retain you and that you're able to come back. But indeed, we live in a democratic order, and this is a democratic organization, and the members will speak.
Like you have said, Prati, we have voluntarily availed ourselves to serve this particular organization. We will continuously avail ourselves as and when members deem it fit for us to continue serving them. So we are ready as the servants of the people of the education sector to continuously serve the educators as and when a call is being made.
Absolutely. We've come to the end of the interview. Let's thank you once again for having us, for chatting to us, for inviting us, for profiling us and allowing us to be here. Truly appreciate it. May ours be an ongoing relationship that is captured by that mutual growth and that mutual respect that we have for each other. What are your parting thoughts, Provincial Sec, as you end this auspicious award?
No, we must also thank and appreciate the relationship that we have established with Mzansi Urban now, and also that every time really you are available to service. But we want to appreciate really the hard work of the teachers.
Absolutely.
We appreciate them having, under the circumstances like we have said, been able to make sure that they are able to really take the standard of education and put it at another level. We want to appreciate everybody, particularly the leadership collective of SADTU in the Northwest, for having agreed that we must continue with this particular activity. And we hope, as we have said, this will grow in leaps and bounds going forward, so that it is more inclusive, more representative, but also we are able then to acknowledge more of our own educators who are contributing into the success of education. So as they will be moving back home, we really appreciate that they travel safe back to their homes, and then the organization is alive, the organization is growing, the organization is still intact, the organization still has a mission to achieve, and we think it will be important that as and when we call them to make themselves available, they will continuously make themselves available, and we're also ready to continue making sure that one of our 2030 vision number one of servicing union members is one of the priorities of this particular leadership collective across all the levels of the organization, from the sites to the branch to the region and the province, that will continue working very hard to make sure that SADTU in the province grow. The last time when we spoke, Prati, I think we were sitting at close to 15,000 members. I can report now we are almost 17 to 18,000 members who are growing this particular organization and want to be a big organization in this particular province and country-wise. Thank you very much.
Are we seeing each other in October for the World Teachers Day?
We have set up as part of our activities for 2022 that we will then have our World Teachers Day celebration. We hope at the time the call for more vaccination, people would have responded, so that we're able then to allow that the number of comrades are able to come and join and celebrate. If the conditions are relaxed, I can assure you that we'll have as many as educators coming to celebrate a very much important day, the day of the educators around the October month.
Provincial Secretary of SADTU. SADTU is the South African Democratic Teachers Union. The province is Northwest. His name is Themba. Always a joy, always a pleasure, my brother, to talk to you. We're talking today at the Matric Excellence Awards in Orion Safari Lodge in Rustenburg, today being the 26th of February 2022. Thank you, everybody.